Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Printed. I'm your host, Vanessa Gomez, and we're back with our department series. This time, we're diving a little bit deeper into a department we have visited before that is, the design department. This time, we'll be talking with our guest about his experience in the industry and a specific career advice for people who are just getting started. But before we dive in, don't forget to follow and subscribe to the podcast. We have some amazing guests lined up for you for this season that you do not want to miss. So, without further ado, let's get into it. We have an incredible guest joining us today. He's an award winning writer and illustrator, a New Yorker cartoonist, and the author of the New York Times bestselling Footnotes from the World's Greatest Bookstores. His work has been exhibited in the Cartoon Art Museum of San Francisco, the Smithsonian Institution, the Cartoon Museum of London, as well as many others. Plus, he is the world's leading snowman expert. Please, everyone, welcome Bob Eckstein to Printed. Hi, Bob. How are you?
How you doing, Vanessa? Really excited to be here.
Oh, me too. Are you ready to get started?
I am.
Perfect. So I always like to start with a section called the What Are You section to just get teams warm up. So, Bob, what are you kind of like reading, listening to, or watching at the moment? It doesn't have to be with books or anything, but something that you like that you're reading, watching, or listening right now.
Well, I'm watching the Winter Olympics, taking it easy, and I'm on my reading table. That's a tough one because I have a pile of books sent to me from people I know, research I need to work on for different projects. And basically, you have to be a mountain goat to get into bed because there's like three piles that obscure the sleeping area to get into bed.
Oh my gosh.
But the book I was reading last night was Moby Dick. You know,
Oh, wow.
yeah, no one gave me the heads up how difficult it is.
Oh, yeah, you have to suffer to get through Moby Dick. I think that's the experience of it.
And the reason why I'm reading that book, again, I'm reading other books. I jump around. A lot of times they're for different reasons, to relax, for humor, or sometimes they're friends and I just want to support them or just see what they're up to. In the case of Moby Dick, I was reading it because I want to get in the right frame of mind for the project. One of the projects I'm working on takes place in 1850 on a ship. So
Oh,
trying to
wow.
like absorb that language, using my own common sense of what is too verbose for today,
Absolutely.
because you
Mhm.
can't be writing the way Moby Dick is. You can get
Yes.
away with it if you're Herman Melville, but you cannot get away with it today.
Not today, no.
So I'm having fun with that. And yeah, I think that covers it. That's good.
Oh, that's perfect. Well, from my side, I just finished reading Wild Dark Shore from Charlotte McGinahue, an amazing like mystery novel that is also like a cautionary ecological tale. I absolutely loved it. I've been listening to a YA book, Wild Reverence from Rebecca Ross. I've read stuff from her before, and this book I've only like 25% read, but it seems great. And then I'm watching, as well as you, I was actually watching yesterday the Winter Olympics. So I watched the opening ceremony and everything. So I think that's what I'll be watching for the next couple of days. I want to start actually like talking a little bit more about you. You have such an incredible career, but I want to start with something kind of a smaller. Like, did you always know that you wanted to have this career? Being a writer, being an illustrator, and maybe in that you can also explain to me and the audience how did you become the world's snowman leading expert? Like, that's such an amazing title to have.
Well, it's never one moment. It's a lot of
Hmm.
little moments, and often they happen by
Yeah,
accident.
yeah.
So I'm going to try to tackle this question and try to be interesting while doing it. I grew up having some learning problems. I wasn't a good student and I didn't read in school. And the nuns complained about this to my mother, who went to the school and said, he's bored. My son is, he doesn't talk. He needs to be challenged. So they came up with this brilliant idea of subscribing to Sports Illustrated. And I was the little kid. So for me, reading Sports Illustrated was a really good challenge. And it was there that every little boy likes sports. As a little kid in third grade, you want to be a baseball player, a football player. And of course, I went through that stage. But Sports Illustrated opened up the world of color. I grew up in the South Bronx. We had a black and white TV. All of a sudden, Sports Illustrated was opening up this world of color. And I definitely see the influence back in grade school carrying over right now in my work, trying to capture that vibrancy and that sort of romantic view of things that usually are boring or mundane. And, and Sports Illustrated, I was reading, and I was also entranced by sports being colorful. Logos on the helmets. I all of a sudden, as a small kid, started finding myself loving the design of logos. So that was opening up that window. And then for insecure reasons, as I was going through school, I kind of gravitated toward things where people gave me compliments, or I saw that I was getting attention.
Oh, I see. Hmm.
That could be a family get together, finding people might have laughed at something I said.
Hmm.
One big moment, I do remember one turning moment, was that when I was in art school, I was taking a writing class, and this teacher, a writing teacher, would read my piece anonymously at the end of each
Hmm.
class to the classroom. I was
Right.
so flattered. And all of a sudden, I
Yeah.
thought to myself, maybe I should do this.
Yeah. Like I can do this.
I could do this. It takes like one person. And as a matter of fact, I want to mention that I've been an art director at times, and I've also taught for about 40 years. I've taught when I graduated Pratt. Right after I graduated, I was asked to join the faculty, and then I taught at School of Visual Arts at NYU and many other schools. And I've never forgotten the impact that my teachers had on me. I mean, I just steal the techniques I've had from my teachers who have inspired me. And I'll never forget the encouragement they give me. And I try to give it back to my students. I see the difference it can make to be encouraging. I also learned this from Monty Python. Monty Python, I happen to know one of the Pythons, and he would explain that they all encourage each other. So if someone came in with a bad idea for a joke, they didn't say, "Oh, that's horrible. Please stop talking." Instead, they would encourage the person, but then try to see how they could fix it or whatever. And I try to take the same approach, not with just other people, but even in myself. I try to even encourage myself and say, I could do this, and maybe it doesn't work. I can recognize that, but let's see now where we go from here.
Absolutely. No, that's so amazing that you do that. And you're absolutely right. It just takes one person to kind of believe in you and encourage what you're good at
Yeah.
for you to kind of like realize that you can actually do that and chase that. And maybe that turns into your dream. And actually, what you've just said, I've talked to many people in the publishing industry, in on itself, and they were all like, yeah, it's just the happy accidents, like it wasn't like just a single moment, but it was like a collection of moments from the time that we were little to the time that you end up meeting someone and then you realize like, oh, this is an industry that I can work in, or this is something that I could love. And now that you've had so many years of experience kind of in the industry and you've done such incredible work, I know
Thank you.
that designing and illustrating, which is what you do, is an art on itself. And it takes a lot of experience, it takes a lot of skill. And I want to ask, with all that experience that you have, after all these years, how would you describe kind of your design or illustration style? Do you have one? Is it something that you built throughout the years? How will you describe it?
Um, well, at the risk of sounding pretentious, I don't have a style.
Hmm.
I don't ever do that. I don't take stock of what I've done. Um, I'm too far. In everything. I really am looking forward to laying down the train tracks in front of me and not looking behind me. And I also can't look too far ahead. It can be daunting to see the horizon. Everything you just said something, and it triggered some thoughts when what you just said to make me feel like those opportunities that we all get, those happy accidents, we all get them. But it's a question of how you react to them. It's the decisions you make that change everything. Because a lot of times people say to me, "Oh, I wish I was talented," or I am talented and this and that. And they base everything on talent and that. But when in fact, it has to do with good decisions. I've seen so many designers and illustrators who will work with something and they show me their progress and their work. And bad decision making is what keeps them from maybe excelling because they don't realize that they actually made some wrong decisions and moved on from what was really working and overworking something and changing something that was actually better at a different stage of the project. So often it's not about like having certain abilities. It's experience and the decision making of knowing when you have something in front of you that is crap or is really good. And so I think I've made tons of mistakes in my career. So what's really great about our talk is that we're just going to discuss all the good things, all the highlights. But, uh,
Right.
but I've been in the business for 40 years, and I
Mhm.
realized from mistakes, and hopefully everyone learns from their mistakes, and then going forward,
Absolutely.
they make a better decision when that opportunity comes again. And
Yeah.
and to me, if I was going to give, I know we were going to talk about at some point what advice
Mhm.
I might have for other people, and
Yeah.
since I'm thinking on this train of thought, let me
Absolutely.
spit it out.
Please do.
Okay, and that is the key is to get as many opportunities. So you try to take as many up at bats so you do have a chance to make not just bad decisions, but those chances, that second chance to make the right decision. And the way to do that is to take risk, putting yourself out there and letting yourself get lots of chances, not working in a vacuum. And when I say that, I think specifically of some individuals I know who have worked on one project for like 10 or 15 years, and they're going to create the most perfect book. And I don't think that's the way to go. I think it's better to juggle. I never work on one project at one time because you don't know if it's not going to work out. And my thinking is you make paper airplanes, you toss them out the window, and you hope that some stick, and not everything's going to work. And if you have all your eggs in one basket, it's really a lot of pressure on you that it has to work. When in fact, the real world is not like that. Not even if you do something really good, something could happen, like some bad luck, that like for instance, a lot of editors and publishers change, and I hear all the time people are working on a project and the editor is no longer working there or the project is dropped. You have to be ready for different things to happen. If you just do one project, you're going to drive yourself crazy.
Oh yeah, you're so right. And I think people need to know like the publishing industry is changing constantly.
Yeah.
So something that worked a year ago is not going to work next year probably. Like we're going with trends, we're going with market, we're going with economy. And exactly what you're saying, like you can't put your eggs in just one basket. And I think you being a writer yourself, you can actually be testimony of this because sometimes writers they work on projects for years and years and years without letting go, and sometimes you actually have to let go of the project and get your editor, or get your literary agent that can help you get like another perspective. And I actually, just in this train of thought, I wanted to ask you, now with all the experience, all these years that you have being a writer, being an editor, being an illustrator, not an editor, sorry, being a designer, when do you know it's time to like, okay, I'm done with this project, like this is as far as I'm gonna take it, I think it's good as it is, I'm gonna let it go?
I ask people who are smarter than me and more experienced
Mm.
this question. I
Right.
consider Jack Handy our generation's greatest humorist. And I was asking him, when does he know when he's writing a book or even writing a joke when it's right? And he goes, it's sometimes an internal feeling that he feels like there's no more changes that can be done. I do think this is a personal thing. Each person has their own method. I don't think there's a wrong or right way if it works for you. I think in my case, I have a funny little thing where if I keep on asking people for their opinion, it's not that good because I'm seeking validation. I'm trying to say, "Oh my god, please say you like it," when in fact, I know deep down it's not right. When I do a joke or a cartoon that I know works, I kinda don't need to show anyone. I
Right. You
kinda
know in your gut that
yeah,
it's
it
good.
just kinda
Yeah.
feels right.
Hmm.
You know, I
Hmm.
sometimes call it sweaty humor, and this applies to
Okay.
books
Hmm.
too, when something feels like it's overworked. It feels
Right.
we see it
Yes.
ourselves. You could see it on TV if you watch a
Hmm.
stand-up that's not quite as good as another stand-up that you love.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
sometimes we love a comedian is it just seems like, "Oh my god, everything he says is so or she says is so great and so funny."
Yeah.
So, it's sort of a feel. It's again, just sort of a
Hmm.
feel, and every person's gonna be different.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're so right. And now I want to kind of take us back because I just realized that we've been throwing these terms around. Like we've been saying like designer, illustrator, and I know for people like us that are in the industry, kind of we know what we're talking about. But for people that are not in the industry, for people that want to get in the industry
Yeah.
or want to get into art itself, is there a difference between a designer and an illustrator, or in your mind is there a difference, and how can we separate both of those, or do these just come like with like intertwined with each other?
Well, that's a tough one. Um, it's oranges and apples. Everything is designed. Everything is sometimes design involves illustration. Illustration is more of a tool in which you bring someone to facilitate that certain something that is required of art. Sometimes, though, design doesn't require illustration. Now, this all begins with an editor. I've edited like 3 books, and at that capacity, you're kind of in charge of the vision and you share the vision with the designer. Everyone's on the same team. And as a team member, everyone kind of puts aside their ego and kind of does a certain role. So after the editor explains sort of the vision of the book, the designer tries to accomplish that in all different means. I'm not a very seasoned designer. I'm brought in sometimes based on some of my projects. But for the most part, I lean on other designers and I look forward to not just working with designers, but from to learn from them. And my new project I'm working on now is again something a little different. So it's a challenge for me, and I'm really loving it. It's a card game called Writer's Block. And the design team is asking me what I want. And I said, I'm excited to see what you come up with. I go, I'm your illustrator. So now, as the role as the illustrator, you're going to tell me what you want, but you're going to create the mood boards. The mood boards being what is the game supposed to be talking about? And this could be about a book too. It could be applies to anything. What is the sort of feeling you want the buyer to feel when they spend that 10 seconds glancing at it, whether it's at a physical store or online? So the jobs are very divided, in my opinion. Designer and illustrator are very separate. There are times in which there's design involved in the illustration, but ultimately, a designer is putting the whole thing together, the typography and the space, and knowing also what the market needs. And seldom does an illustrator really take into account the current trends and the different movements that exist. But like here's a for instance, many years ago, my first book, I did about 30 different covers. The designer would then explain what they needed in the way of trends. And in this case, they narrowed down the 30 different covers into what the market was telling them. And in this case, they said red was the season that they needed to do red. And so that helped make decisions. Then they said what readers were looking for in the way of comfort and different things like that. And so in that case, that's all decisions made by the designer and an editor, where the illustrator is just sort of a working hand.
Okay, yeah, that makes so much sense. And I think that it's going to make sense also for the audience. If you want to be an illustrator or if you want to be a designer, now you know the difference. Now kind of more idea of which career path you want to chase. And I actually just want to go back to something that you said, designing 30 covers for a book. And we know now that book covers are so important and so key for the audience, for sales, to attract readers. And I'm just wondering, how would you, in your mind, say that a book cover kind of shapes the expectations that readers have before picking up a book? Now that you have, designed many book covers as well.
That's interesting. I want to be careful how I say this
Hmm.
because it's really such a big thing. It's such a
Yeah.
big thing, more so than people would imagine. It used to actually be more important because actually, people don't physically go into stores much. Book sales are mostly online, and physical bookstores make up about 10%. So when you're shopping and browsing physically, a cover could be worth even more. Now people find books online. They're not looking for covers. So they're finding books by different means. And actually, it makes me think of an interesting discussion, which I'll keep it brief. And that is, today, a book is defined by how much it could help the reader. Would it help the reader relax or forget, like romance books? Now, I said romance books. So that's a good example. It's a good illustration that not the best covers are the best books. Certainly, romance book covers are not the finest art form in publishing. And yet they're very popular because people want comfort right now. And so covers could mean quite a bit, but that itself is changing.
Yes. Yeah, and you're so right. Now we see, and I was actually talking with a designer the other day, and now we see those so kind of like illustrated covers on romance books or like those spread edges on the books. And that sometimes just mean that, they're chasing sales because that's exactly what the reader is going to pick up. And it's because exactly what you're saying is because they are looking for comfort. That's the what the economy is looking for right now, and that's what the audience is looking for right now, kind of like those comfort cozy reads that I really don't have to think much. It's just I love a story and I know how it's going to end, kind of.
I know. I mean, I was an art director for a
Hmm.
publisher that was big, and their specialty was romance books. And
Right.
I had hired in my staff, my department was a dozen illustrators. So I worked with 12 different illustrators, telling them what was needed. I was the go between. I was taking the vision of the editor and then translating it to the illustrator. And then from there, I gave the illustrator direction of tone and what they needed. Well, I don't need to tell you, this story doesn't end well. Unlike romance books, which always has a happy ending, um, I was let go because AI was brought in to create the covers. And it goes to show that that is actually an aspect that's totally replaceable. And I had to fire all dozen illustrators. I didn't approve of this. I left the company myself in disgust. But that is something that I'm trying to be, and I don't want to lead people on who might hear this and then they're going to say, well, everyone said it was going to be fine, hunky dory. But that's a challenge in the business.
Absolutely. No, you're so right. And I think that AI it's becoming so prominent in so many parts of the business. We're seeing like editors asking for submissions, like put in the note now, just saying like if anything is written by AI, is we're not gonna buy it or we're not gonna go for it. And I think that's it's so important to people that are going to go into this industry to know that AI is a challenge right now
Oh
in the
yeah,
industry.
it's
Yeah.
it's affecting things in ways that people don't even think of, and this is a little
Hmm.
outside of our scope. But I
Yeah.
know people who do voiceovers for the audiobooks. They've all
Yep.
lost their job. They've all been replaced by AI voices. And that is, for people who don't know, the audiobooks are usually hiring professional voiceover
Yes.
people to do
Hmm.
a reading of the book. Sometimes
Yep.
it's a famous person who wrote the book. But in the
Yeah.
case of someone like myself, you would have a professional do it. And now it's all
Hmm.
done by a robot.
Yeah, no, it's kind of sad that that's happening. And what I if it's hopeful for anyone, what I've noticed is that readers are noticing more and more where AI is used. So like I've seen videos online of like readers going to stores and looking at book covers and being like, this is done by AI. Like I can see that this is done by AI, and they are not liking it. So maybe that's gonna make a turn in our industry. Like maybe that's gonna bring back the human aspect that we all like.
Yeah. And Vanessa, just not to end on a bad note, I'll add
Hmm.
one way to combat this is to try to create whatever it means, like whether you're a visual artist or writing or whatever you may do, you want to create something AI can't, which is that personal thing which allows you to have spit. And, I know some people, for instance, illustrators who have a very computerized style already. Well, they're just going to be making their lives a little bit more difficult if they are doing something that AI is very close to already. So I think that having a very organic, natural, primitive, naive style lends itself for you being AI proof.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a great note, and actually not negative to end this section with. And now I want to move on to something that you mentioned at the beginning, kind of career advice for people that maybe want to follow on the career path that you have followed as well, being a designer or being an illustrator. And I want to start with something simple as well. From your experience and everything that you've lived, what do you think are kind of the main skills if you want to be a designer or an illustrator? And we can stick to five so we don't go overboard with the skills.
Um, you know, I think I think the first thing is understanding the business. More than anything else, I think it's important if a person understands what their client or boss are expecting of them. So I'm not going to say you need to use this rapidograph pen and this is the type of paper you use. To be honest, none of those things are really that important. Um, because you know, I was doing work at one point to be very raw and natural. I was actually switched from being righty and worked lefty. And I was actually using very primitive tools like a stick with ink, just so I could get something totally different. And so I would stand out from other people's work. My point is, though, is it doesn't really make a difference on the craft part. It's the thinking again. And so you want to be able to be someone that's easy to work with and has an understanding. An example would be I see illustrators and writers make the same mistake of not understanding that it's better to turn in your work on time than to do this masterpiece A work and to be late. I know so many people tell me, oh, it's very late. I'm going to be turning in my book a year late, but I know they'll love it. It's going to be perfect. And nobody works that way. And that is the big mistake to assume that you're going to win over their dismay with
Yeah,
you.
no.
Instead, it's better to be someone who just seems very professional,
Yeah.
who asks the most appropriate questions,
Hmm.
who doesn't call them up at Saturday night and say, I'm freaking out. I can't get this job. I
Right.
need your help. Nobody wants to have added drama in their life. The reason why they
No,
hired
yeah.
you is because they're hoping that you would take that burden off.
The load of, yes,
Right.
yeah.
So I think that understanding that and understanding the needs of marketing
Mhm,
and understanding that you're a team player and putting your ego aside. Um,
mhm,
and it's fine if you want to take full control. And that's the title of a fine artist, where you have total control. But as an
mhm.
illustrator, your job description is actually to cater to someone else. That is not your
Right.
time to
Mhm,
explore and have,
mhm.
this is time to experiment.
Right.
I see that with, this is something I think I can be helpful with. I see this
Mhm.
with websites and portfolios.
Oh, I see. Mhm,
Websites and portfolios should make it clear to a
mhm.
client what they're going to get.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
not a chance to do visual gymnastics and to try
No.
to show off and to show your range. Instead, everybody just wants you to be predictable. Now, that sounds like a sellout and sounds like I'm trying to ask you to be boring. There's, of course, all different boundaries with this. You're going to be creative, but you have to be creative within what the client is also needing for their needs. And you know what? If you do that well and you move on, you earn the right to be more of an unpredictable person later. Like, for instance, I'm working now, I'm very old, and people could see that I have experience, and I've earned the chance for people to say, instead of us showing you what covers we're going to do for your book, we want you to be part of the process. And that's because I've worked on 50 books already. And I've done books, like a dozen books where I designed them. So people feel like I could work with them, and they could see too from that work that I'm going to be easy to work with, that I'm not
Absolutely.
right, that I'm going to be,
Yeah.
and actually be fun to work with.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
they could sense with me when we had that first meeting, I think people could sense my love of learning, my excitement
Mhm.
of meeting people. People in publishing are so nice. They're such a great group
Oh,
of
they are
people.
so nice. Yes. Yeah.
And they also have a lot of challenges. And
Mhm.
they do not have it easy. People think that everyone who's got a job is doing great. It is not easy.
No, no, it's not. And I actually want to add to that. Yeah, like everyone in publishing, it's so nice. Everyone that I've talked to is so incredibly nice. And you can really feel, as you're saying, when you get into a conversation with someone, the love that they have for the industry, whether it's like designing, whether it's like as editor, a marketer, a publicist, like everyone has a love for books and a love for this industry. And I think that's so important. If you want to get into the industry, you're gonna like find so many people that are so willing to share their knowledge
Yeah.
and like bring you in because it's such a special industry and we love working in this industry. And I actually thank you so much with that response because you actually answered the next question that I had is like, if an illustrator wants to get into publishing, should they know how the industry works? And your answer was yes,
Yeah.
yes,
But I,
they need to.
I love what you just said, because I would have
Mhm.
said the same thing verbatim, but I do want to add one little thing.
Absolutely, yes.
Um, to get, I don't want to dismiss your question as saying that your skill
Mhm.
set, your toolkit doesn't have
Yeah.
specific tools. That
Mhm.
said, I can tell as a person who hires illustrators if someone's been to art school or not. It's it's pretty obvious. Now, anything is possible. I'm not saying you have to go to art school or you have to be a lit major to write a book or whatever. There's always exceptions, but it certainly makes you more accomplished if you understand all the principles and basics. Um, I said you could do anything, anything is possible. And that is because it's never been easier to get published as a writer or an illustrator. It really isn't that hard. I mean, because there's hybrids, there's vanity presses, there's self publishing, even if you don't get in. But it's never been harder to make a living from it. It's more like, for instance, let's just take for an example gag cartoons. Gag cartoons are more recreational now than vocational. There was a time when I first went into gag cartoons that I made a living from it. I made more money then than I make total now. There's no way I can make that money now. There's just simply no way. It's too dispersed. uh, Different markets, whether it's National Lampoon, Mad Magazine, Playboy, Barron's, Harvard Business Review, all of them are gone. As in my case, the New Yorker is no longer a viable market because they took in hundreds of new people, and the pie is sliced so thinly that you could not say you're making a full living from it. So, again, to just put a good twist on this, that doesn't mean you can't enjoy cartooning and you shouldn't stop making cartoons or doing what you love to do. It's just that not having the blinders on and knowing that you need to have other avenues that you're going down and not to juggle some other things. I don't want people having despair and say they put all their hopes in being a very wealthy poet. You know
Yeah.
what? Let's say you're going to do poetry, but
Mhm.
let's also write nonfiction, and let's also think
Yeah.
about doing freelance magazine editorial work and expand because all of us could do multiple things. Nobody has one
Yes.
skill.
Mhm.
And so I think it's good to get that reminder, even though I'm sure all of us know that already. But it's always good
Yes.
to be reminded, let's don't put all our pressure into one thing.
Yeah, no, you are so right, and I think that's one of the reasons why I created this platform, because people see, like, in movies or in series, like this job of like, oh, I'm a columnist and I live just from that, or oh, I'm a poet and I live just from that. That's not how it is in the industry, unless you're very, very successful and you have a lot of experience in your back.
Yeah.
You usually, what people do is, like, as you're saying, they have different venues.
Yeah.
Like, you can be a poet, but you can also write nonfiction, you can also be a freelancer for a magazine. It doesn't mean that you can't chase that path, it's just that path looks different now.
Yeah, and that also, you should not add this extra burden on you to say, I have to make a
Yeah.
living from one thing and
Hmm.
not to enjoy it. You should be
Yes.
feeling you can enjoy this on any capacity because
Hmm.
the reason why there are exceptions of people who do break the rule, but sometimes it's just luck. Maybe you'll
Yes.
get luck
Yeah.
and that's fine. It's just that you shouldn't be so hard on yourself because it sometimes forces outside of your control as to why
Hmm.
things. And sometimes it just takes time, and you could continue working
Yeah.
on your craft while you're doing other things.
Absolutely. And I actually want to just like touch into something that you just said. When you started in the industry, and you wanted to pursue, you were a cartoonist, and as we mentioned at the beginning, you've been a cartoonist for the New Yorker, which was, it's a dream for many illustrators, for many designers, to be in the New Yorker, because it's such a prominent magazine. It's a magazine that has had one of the best cartoonists in the world. So if someone wants to pursue that, even if it's just like as a side thing beside everything else that they are doing in the industry, how kind of does that path look like for someone that wants to pursue that, based on your experience, based on what has happened with you?
Well, my experience is not going to be helpful in the sense that things have
Mhm.
changed. Everything has
Yeah, that's
changed with
true.
everything. Even, I
Yeah.
mean, if you're a stand up now, the path to getting a Netflix special is different than just 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're
With the
right.
New Yorker, everything now is very transparent. They allow
Hmm.
anyone to submit. Um, as a result, the amount of people who are submitting is tremendous. Um, all I could say is go in there with realistic expectations, and I can't really give any more exacting submission ideas in regards to forms. It would be wrong for me to say more because I'm not a regular at the magazine anymore. And no one is, with the exception of Raj Chaz, possibly. And, she's been doing it for a long time. And this is a conversation I hear all the time. Um, One of the projects I'm doing on the side is I'm writing a movie. I'm writing a screenplay, and screenwriters are all saying that it's never been easier to get your screenwriting scene or a clip or a trailer because nowadays people can just do a reel really quick on their iPhone or do something really inexpensive and pitch their movie idea to different studios or whatever. But it's the same thing as with other businesses and like cartooning, that because of that, there are just so many submissions, it's hard to stand out. It's just so many inundated. Like, for instance, when I was at the New Yorker, there was like 50 to 60 regular cartoonists who every week turned in 10 cartoons. Now there's hundreds. And it's possible that my work or someone else's doesn't even get a chance to be seen. How could it? How could how could it possibly possible when there's, let's say, I don't know, 1,500, 2,500 submissions a week? I An example is that I have some friends who are literary agents, and I love talking about gossip to hear what trends exist, what's hot, what's happening in the business, and things like that. And the agents, two agents I could remember, sort of sharing with me how they're up to now. I know one of them said this exactly. They're up to like 500 to 800 submissions a week
Oh my
to
gosh.
rep them.
Hmm.
Okay, so that's discouraging. So let's be more encouraging. The main thing is that it is an open mic, so you have a
Hmm.
chance. And the other thing
Yes.
I think what we need to learn here is that you need to stand out.
Hmm.
So, for instance, let's say someone's writing a book proposal who happens to be listening to us right now.
Yes.
I would say those first 10 pages is everything. As a matter of
Hmm.
fact, let's be honest, that first page.
The first
Okay,
sentence is it's key.
if you and me want to be nasty, it's that first paragraph,
Yeah.
because that agent has got another 499 books on their
To
desk,
read.
and
Yeah.
they're going to
Mhm.
go to the next book. If that elevator pitch doesn't capture their imagination and hit a checklist, it doesn't mean you're not good. It doesn't mean your book is not right.
Yes.
It just means it's going to go maybe somewhere else. But if you're going
Yep.
to land at one particular agent, you need to check off the box that they want. And there's some secrets I've learned because I had the luxury of being on different sides of the fence. I did get a chance to get some inside baseball. And one of them is editors have lunches with publishers and meet with different people who have to get a quota. So, like, my agent meets an editor. The editor tells her, we're looking for a Jewish cookbook for Christmas, which is doesn't make sense. Or we're looking for ice hockey romance. You
Right.
know,
Oh, yeah. Very popular right now.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Romance and hockey rink is hot,
Yes.
and so they have certain needs. So if
Yep.
you throw to them, I want to do something on North American Caribbean music, it's not going to maybe fit in their needs. It has nothing to
No.
do. Your book might be great, but so that's why it's just a sentence or two that's going to determine for an agent whether you fit for them. So you want to really make sure that your message is clear. That Because a lot of people might be doing a book that is a fit, but they're not saying it the right way to make it clear. They've got to sum up their book perfectly in two sentences. I'll give an example. I'm working on a book now on a stowaway on a ship, and the ship is looking for Sir John Franklin, who is missing in 1850. He's an explorer, and my elevated pitches. They went searching for the missing explorer, and they found love instead. Okay.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, see, now you should be representing my book. um, I think that it sounds corny, but at least the person feels like, oh, that is something that I'm looking for, or that's not quite for me. So I made it
Yeah.
clear. I took out the details.
Hmm.
There's nothing important to, I'm just telling them exactly what,
What it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think that when people look at it from that angle, it helps their chances. I think it helped their
Yeah.
chances of getting their book looked at. But I think that when people tell me, I have a friend who's writing a book that's up to 700,000 words. He's been doing it for 15 years. And I said,
Oh my
you
god.
should get some feedback. And he
Yep.
goes, I want to make sure that the ending is just right. And I said, the nicest way as I can,
Hmm.
no one is going to, as an agent, is going to get to the ending. It's
No.
700,000 words. Who is going to have the time to go through 7,000 words?
Yeah.
That first paragraph has to be killer.
Yes, yes, those, as exactly as you're saying, that first paragraph, those first few pages, they need to attract the attention of the literary agent because, as you're saying, they're reading thousands of things every single day, and if they don't like it, they're just gonna pass, or if they don't understand it, they're just gonna pass. And for anyone listening that's a writer, again, that doesn't mean that your book is not good.
Yeah.
Maybe it just means that you need to work on your pitch.
Yep.
That's yeah,
I have something funny I got to add. I just thought of
yeah,
something
absolutely.
funny. I get sent manuscripts all the time. And
Hmm.
one excuse I have when I give them feedback is, well, I need a chapter or two to set up the mood, right?
Right.
Yeah. And when I say to them, you need to capture the reader in the first paragraph, they often show me something that drops the F bomb in the first paragraph. That is not what I mean when I say capture someone's attention.
Right.
That is actually a real turnoff to me immediately.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, yeah.
No, yeah, no, that's actually so funny that that has happened to you. I mean, I guess that's one way to capture the attention, but yeah, no, it means, whenever you're writing and you're a writer, and of course you've been a reader before because maybe that's why you end up being a writer. Remember those books that you fell in love with. Like what in the first few pages like attracted you. And it
Well,
doesn't have to
Vanessa,
be like
that is
dropping the
key.
F bomb.
Vanessa, that is the key. It's
Yeah.
never the story either. If you look at the
Yeah.
story of The Godfather, there's nothing of interest. What's the key is that somehow the first beginning of the book, you got
Hmm.
interested in the character. For some reason, you thought the character in some way related to you. You saw yourself in some way in the character. And this way, when you're reading the story, you're thinking to yourself, the character's decisions in your head, you're saying, oh, what if I made the same
It's
decision?
my this yeah,
And you're
exactly.
putting
Yeah.
yourself in the shoes. If you can't relate to a character, the book is never going to have you're not going to get the reader's emotional investment.
No, no, absolutely. You're so right. And now I want to end this section by asking you maybe a loaded question, maybe a simple one, but if you could go back in time and look at your younger self at the beginning of your career, what type of advice would you give to yourself now knowing everything that you know?
All right. Well, I already told you I never look back at those
Yes,
things. Okay.
that's true.
And I would say to be a good sport,
Hmm.
I would just simply say I wish I started earlier. I didn't do cartoons until much later as a dare. I just wasn't exposed to the right people and stuff. I I wished I was starting earlier for selfish reasons as well. Book advances were larger. The cartoons were funnier. It was a golden age of gag cartoons. I jumped in at the very end of it, and I'm proud to be a part of that. But it's different, and looking back, there are tons of regrets. Um, I don't, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's such a loaded question. Now you're acting, Vanessa. You're putting on your therapist hat.
Yeah, no,
Be-
I'm so sorry. That's how do you feel with that?
yeah, because I think back when you asked me that, the first thing I thought of was like, okay, all the days and nights with the softball team, going
Hmm.
to the bar afterward and wasting all those nights with these guys who had no ambitions whatsoever and had no interest in the arts, and not exposing myself to museums and exposing myself to great literature and meeting more people who were going to be influential in my
Right,
life.
like-minded people. Yeah.
Yes. Instead,
Hmm.
hanging out at the wrong places, putting
Right.
so much emphasis on dating and things like that. I think back,
Hmm.
oh my goodness, I drove myself crazy.
Yes.
And I want to mention, I've written a new book called
Mhm.
Footnotes from the Most Fascinating Museums. And I went to all these different museums, and many. many museums in a day at times. Some days I went to multiple museums and it was amazing. It's like, oh my God, why am I doing this at age? I'm not going to say what age I am. At that
It's
age, why am I
okay.
doing this at this
You look
age
very
now
young.
and not 30, 40 years earlier? I am
Mhm.
so stupid. How could I have
Right.
not been aware of how much there was to offer me, how much I could have learned? And oh, so I have so much catching up to do now. And
Mm.
surrounding yourself with positive people,
Yes.
people
Yeah.
who are going to create positivity that's going to project you, propel you to go forward, making you a better
Absolutely.
creative person and not
Mhm.
giving you negative thoughts that you can't do this and you can't be doing that. I mean, if I had said things today on the show that say that I try to, you know, explain, I'm saying it for realism, but also to explain how you deal with it and not to discourage you, but to go in with clear eyes.
I want to kind of have time to have a fun break for the audience as well and get you to answer questions that are rapid fire that you don't need to overthink. What's your favorite book genre?
Nonfiction biographies. I love to hear
Okay.
other people's journey. And I always feel like I can learn from their achievements and mistakes.
Oh yeah, that's wonderful. What will you be your go-to author or someone that you really like reading?
Ooh, that is hard. There's so many people. You said answer quickly. I'm going to say Michael Palin.
Okay, perfect. Do you have a reading snack, something that you eat while you're reading?
As a matter of fact, I try to get rid of all the distractions.
Mm,
My office is set up on the roof of my house.
I
So I
see.
go up
Mhm,
there because I'm not going to have anything else, no snacks, just a
mhm.
bottle of water, but I have no cell phone reception. How you like that?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's
So
a great idea for no distractions.
so no snacks, no snacks.
Okay, okay, good. Now that we have many book formats, what's your preferred book format? Like, do you like hardcovers, paperbacks?
Oh,
There's also ebooks and audiobooks now. What do you prefer?
oh boy, did you hit a nerve.
Oh
Has to
no.
be physical books. When I
Yeah.
do my books, everything's about creating a different, special, tactile experience. My one book about bookstores opens up like a garage door. Other books have unusual things about the production that is like a surprise. I just came out with something with Chronicle Books that's oh my God, it's so beautiful. It's a postcard set that you open up like a drawer with a
Oh.
ribbon and it opens
Oh,
up.
that's gorgeous.
So every time I do something, I say to myself, how am I going to convince people to abandon Kindle? I do not
And
want
go back
people,
to physical
right?
books.
I don't want people going to the beach with a Kindle. Why? Because it adds another wall. This is not a short answer. I am so sorry. It
No,
creates
don't
another
worry.
wall between the reader having the intimacy with the writer. It's a special relationship, and it adds a distance when it's electronic. It really does.
Yeah, yeah, no, you're totally right. Well, what about, do you prefer to buy your books or to borrow them from the library?
Oh, I never borrow anymore because as part of in the business, I realize that I got to support not just
Hmm.
writers, but I need to support the independent bookstores. So I'm
Absolutely.
very involved in independent bookstores, doing things like I illustrate their bookstores. I always talk about them in social media. I help them with events. I donate. I do fundraisers. One interesting donation thing I do is we do raffles for original cartoons. I've done this a few times where we raffle off a cartoon, like an original New Yorker cartoon, and they get a chance if they purchase a book in the store.
Oh,
And I get
that's
brownie
amazing.
points from the stores. The stores, of course, love me for that.
Yes,
And then
absolutely.
getting a book event there it can become quite easy.
Do you consider yourself a fast or a slow reader?
Oh, I am a slow reader. If I was smarter, I would get more things done because books have been slowing me down. I cannot just go through it quickly. Like, for instance, Moby Dick. Let's face it, I only got to like chapter two. I've
Oh,
been
it
at it
happens
for
to all
weeks.
of us.
I feel
Yes.
like a dunce.
All right, to finish the section, and I hope this is not one that you overthink or is loaded, but if you could recommend one book to everyone listening, what would it be?
You know who I like a lot, I can read over and over? There's a comedian who writes these books that are really good, and I don't know if people know of them, but Dimitri Martin wrote This Is a Book, and it's a collection of short stories, and, I like it better than even his stand-up. It's, really well written. You know,
Oh,
it's
that's
just has all
perfect.
these short stories that are funny, and I think that right now, I love the idea of economical, digestible portions.
Well, I know that we're a little bit over time, but we only have three Q&A questions from the community. So the first one that they have is, what are kind of like some common misconceptions that people have about illustrators?
As your family and friends, or these are people who are illustrators of illustrators?
You know what? Family and friends, like people outside of the industry, what is something that, they just assume that it's wrong about being an illustrator
Oh,
or the business itself?
I am swimming in money. I have an oval driveway and a lap pool in
Mhm.
my living room.
Oh my
I am doing
God.
really well. Um, Illustrations, I think one thing that's a little, to be serious for a moment, I don't think people
Yeah.
realize when work is done by AI or if it's done by a human.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's one of the problems going on. I think there's a misconception of when work is done
Hmm.
mechanically.
Yeah. All right. The second question that they have is, how do you navigate feedback? When you have visual choices that maybe are tied to your creative identity, how do you handle that as an illustrator or designer?
Well, I think the beginning is just understanding you're part of a team
Hmm.
and everybody wants the same thing. They want what's going to be best for the book. And if you're
Hmm.
open minded to understanding that they might know better than you and that you can see how different things could work, well, then it changes your whole welcoming mat toward feedback. Feedback all of a sudden doesn't become this person saying that they don't like your work. I think after you hear a lot of negative feedback, yeah. But now there's that, and then there's the feedback that you see on, let's say, Amazon or Goodreads. Goodreads is the devil's underpants. People love to be critical as can be. I don't read any of my reviews, and I'm sure there's plenty of nice reviews, and I thank you if you left a nice review, but you can't allow yourself that. I mean, I get fan mail now, and I get mail from angry people, from political lunatics. If they see a cartoon and they think it's construed in some way, I get really angry email. I cannot also start reading my reviews. I'll go crazy. But if you can think of feedback as a way of hearing the boos or the applause on stage, and then understand that everything can be improved on. I always like to say to writers, especially in my writing classes, that you write something, you put it aside, go to sleep, and let it marinate. Your mind is working on that job, even in your subconscious overnight. And which is why sometimes you could get a new idea or a better idea when you wake up or when you're in the shower. It's because somehow or another your mind was thinking of solution. That's right. And so you need sometimes time to work its magic on your writing and stuff. For instance, my new book, I took some time before working on it so that when I read it again, it was with fresh eyes because I haven't read it in a year.
Yeah. No, that's such a great idea. Okay, our last question for our Q&A is, how do you think that design elevates storytelling beyond the words on a book? Like, what's your perspective on that?
Well, it's case by case. You
Hmm.
know, the cover's just trying to get people to come in. It's the barker in front of the club that says, giving you free tickets. The host in front of the restaurant saying that the specials are. So once you grab them in, and then you win the trust of the readers early on. But and the way you do that is because a reader needs to trust the writer. They're not going to take advantage of their time. But it's the cover and the design. The design has to say, give anything some gravitas. It's case by case. Different children's books are going to be different than romance books and different than, for instance, I said earlier that I like nonfiction biographies. So in that case, a lot of times it's just a photograph of the celebrity that I want to learn more about. So then the cover is not so much the design is not going to change my opinion of how much I love that celebrity. I want to learn more about the person who I want to be closer to. But a romance book, it could tell me like, okay, this is taking place in the
Oh yeah,
morgue.
what's gonna happen? Yeah.
Look at that guy's shoulders. He got it going on, and she's really into him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you're so right. No, yeah, that's a great perspective. Okay, all right. Well, we're done with all the questions. So, Bob, thank you so much for joining us. This has been such an incredible conversation. We touch on being a designer, on being a cartoonist, on being a writer, on how to get to work on the industry. So, I bet that this is going to help my audience and the listeners so much to understand more the publishing industry. But before we wrap up, I want to ask, where can listeners follow you, follow your work, see what you're doing right now?
Well, first of all, thank you very much. I know we talked about making this a 10-part series, this being the first part. Thank you.
Absolutely. It's like gonna be a docu series.
Yeah, we had so much to cover. We could go on and on. But
Oh gosh.
but thank you for letting me pontificate because I did enjoy talking about on and on. It really
Mhm.
was. I think we covered a lot. It was really good. Um,
Yes.
I welcome your listeners to join me on my newsletter. It's a very fun, popular newsletter. A lot of
Mhm.
people in the industry are subscribers, and it's very non-invasive. I'm not going to pester you. It's just
Mhm.
occasionally. It's called the Bob
Okay.
BOB. It's Substack. It's free. You could pay if you want. If you pay,
Mhm.
you get extras. But I'll give you a paid subscription if you're a senior or if you're a student or if budget concerns are a problem. I'm happy just to waive the subscription because I just want to share what I know and also hopefully make you laugh because there's some cartoons and some fun stories.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah, please do. Anyone listening, please join that newsletter.
Yeah.
And now, the very last question I guess that I want to ask is, having had so much experience in the industry and an amazing career that you had and that you'll continue to have, I'm sure, for people that are starting their careers, that are struggling right now, that as you're saying, maybe there's negative feedback that they are having right now and they're feeling discouraged. Maybe they're thinking that the industry is not for them, but they really love it. What would you say to kind of encourage them to continue their journey?
I think it would be good advice that they find a community, they find their
Mhm.
people. There's other people like you, and
Mhm.
they're not your competitors. You're going to need other people to succeed. I think
Yes.
if you think of it as everyone as your competition, I think it's making things harder on you.
Hmm.
Instead, try to bond, hook
Yeah.
your caboose to something else, try to help someone else, partner with people, be open minded, and network. So meet other people, go to meetups, go to different functions in which you might meet the right person. I think you have a better chance of finding your big break if you see that person face to face than if you're
Yep.
emailing coldly to people. It's not easy, but it wasn't easy for me either. I make it,
Hmm.
I'm condensing my life in 1 hour.
Right. Yes.
It was a long journey, and I wish everyone
Absolutely.
well.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Like those encouraging words are, I think the audience is gonna take them so well, and they're gonna take them into their career. So thanks again, Bob, for joining us. This was such an amazing conversation. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that's it for today's episode. Next episode, we'll have more amazing guests lined up for you. So make sure to follow and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes of this season. You can also visit our website, publishinggap.com, for free resources and information about this season's guests. Follow us on Instagram at The Publishing Guide for updates and behind the scenes content. Remember to leave in the comments any questions that you want to see in any future Q&As. Please note that any views expressed in this podcast are personal and do not reflect the opinions of the host or guest employers. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.